morning, everyone. My name is Monique St. Paul, and you're here for Intersections in Learning. Our guests today are Kim Lindsey. You can wave for us, thank you, and Jen Yaros. They're both from Cinecraft Productions. Jen is a learning consultant, and Kim is a lead learning experience designer. The reason we wanted to talk to them today is because they both know a lot about technical writing, and we wanted to talk about how that intersects with working with those of us in learning and development. So I'll let you both introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about how you got to where you are and what you're doing.
I'm going to let Jen go first because you all know
Smart.
me pretty well. But you all need to know Jen.
Well, I started out wanting to be the next great American writer and realized I needed to pay bills. So
Always important.
and just looking, and I found something about technical writing, and I'm like, well, I don't know what that is, but I'm a writer, so I can learn. It was a lot of learning, a lot different than what I thought it was, but I started out in doing technical writing for the aerospace industry. And then I decided, hey, if I'm going to be a consultant, I need to make sure that I have a lot of skills available so I can keep work going, and decided, hey, instructional design, there's a lot going on there. Let's see if I can add that to my resume. And I realized that there was a lot of overlap. There's a lot of differences, but there's a lot of overlap between the technical writing and instructional design, and fell in love with instructional design. I've been doing it for the last 2 decades or so.
Excellent. And then Kim, do you want to share with us what's going on with you?
Well, most of you probably know me pretty well. I'm the lead learning experience designer at Cinecraft Productions in Cleveland, Ohio. And I've lived in the Northeast Ohio almost my entire life. So I'm a glutton for punishment here as far as weather. I actually had a long career in healthcare and then transitioned into technical writing because I had been a user of technical documentation. And then from there, I also, due to a layoff, I found my current wonderful job at Cinecraft. And I actually knew technical writing, as Jen said, there's a lot of overlap, but I really had no experience at it before Dan hired me, but I learned really quick and I love it. It's a very creative field and it's a wonderful fit for me. I wish I'd found it sooner. So hopefully that's enough.
No, that's perfect. And I do want to mention, of course, that Lisa Crockett, my co-host, is behind the controls today, so she's producing for us. But you both mentioned that it wasn't what you were expecting. So could you tell us a little bit about what technical writing is?
Oh,
Oh, do you want to?
I'll go on. I'll go ahead.
ahead.
What I kind of feel that as far as the kinds of things that are being written, technical writing is a broader field than instructional design, because you could be writing the inserts that are in your pharmaceuticals. You could be writing grant proposals or scientific research papers. You could be writing user manuals, help files, like, hey, here, I have a book. I wrote this book.
That's
It's about
serious business.
It's about software, all the screenshots and everything. So there's, you could be creating software demos and tutorials. There's also some video. What there is not, though, is too much graphics, because technical illustration is a separate field. And usually there are different people who do that. Mm-hmm. So what did I miss, Jen?
Well, so where my background is in aerospace, I did a lot of parts listing. And I don't know if many people have seen those. You don't see them too often, but if you buy something that you have to construct yourself, in the very beginning, you'll see these are the parts that are included and here's the tools you need. Well, for airplane engines, that parts list is about this thick. So every single nut and bolt has to be accounted for, how these all are assembled and go to. So it's just all of the parts, the part numbers, descriptions, the quantity, and which assembly they go to. And the importance of that is, if somebody is working on it doing repairs, they need to order the parts, and that's how they find it. So it's like a supplemental to the manuals. Sounds like a very tedious thing, but it appealed to me. I loved it because it was very, I think it was my OCD.
It's
There's
order.
one way
It's
to
order,
do it.
organization. Yeah.
Yes. And I loved it. Another thing with technical writing is you have to be familiar with, not necessarily know, but at least be familiar with a lot of regulations and standards. I worked a lot with standard technical English, and back in the day it was called simplified English. I still recommend using that even in training today because it helps if things have to go to translation. It helps people where English is a second language. It helps get rid of that ambiguity in the English language. A lot of times you have to work with FDA regulations. You have to be familiar with, aerospace has their whole list of regulations. So there's a lot of those things that you don't have in training that you have in technical writing. Where I found similarities was transferring knowledge to an end user.
Okay.
And that's what I really appealed to me, was talking to these highly technical people, super smart engineers that know everything about a component, and they are excited to share their knowledge. And I have to translate what they say into common everyday something everybody will understand, and only give them the information they need. So I'm not going to tell them how to build the airplane. I'm just going to tell them where the start button is.
So 2 questions, one of which is in chat, which is when you sort of say simple, I think you said simple writing. Is that to a certain grade level? Like I've heard that most writings at 8th grade level is where you should stay. So
yeah,
and there's a lot more to it than that. And actually, we should have Jen on to do a session on that. So let's put that on the list. So
yeah, so it is more than that.
Share, please.
Yeah. So, and I have done several talks with this. It is certain words you can and cannot use, because in the English language, so many words have multiple meanings, or they can be used as a noun and a verb. So this regulates how you use the words and the words that you choose to use. Must use active voice. That's a big thing. Active voice, no passive voice. So it's basically a list of rules of words to use and grammar, and how you use them, how you apply them, making things as simple as possible. A lot of times people think that technical writing is making something sound as complex and technical as possible, but it really isn't. It's how do you simplify that and distill it down into something that everybody's going to understand and everybody can use it. I know everybody's looked at manuals and they're like, I don't understand what's being said. It's because it's written poorly. And I love getting my red pen and marking them up and sending them back to the company.
Yeah. Do you have any resources if people need to simplify their language that you go to about what words to use or anything like that? And if you don't have them now, we can certainly send them later. But you can say them out loud.
I can get a web address for it and to share later. I don't have it off the top of my head, but it is STE is an organization that updates this manual periodically in the words. When I first started it, there was only a list of 300 words that were approved to use in a manual. Wow. But now that's changed because you have new technology, new words come into play when you have new technology and that kind of thing. So it is always updated, but there's a manual you can download and it will take you through it. And so I'd be more than happy to share that.
Excellent. And then you mentioned that you want to translate it to your end user. So I've read instructions before, and like you said, good writing when you see it, bad writing when you can't get something built together. So what do you think, would you tell someone who's just coming into technical writing that they should watch out for to make sure that it's the easiest for their end user to understand?
Don't get caught up in the jargon. A lot of subject matter experts, they tend to stick with their jargon. I do it in technical writing and as an instructional designer. I forget sometimes that my clients don't know what an SME is, so making sure that you're not getting caught up in that jargon. And back kind of overlapping this with training, and I wish I had known this when I was a technical writer. What's the objective and the goal for it? And make sure you stick to that, because if it doesn't meet those, it doesn't need to go into the manual or job aid or help file or whatever it is that you're writing.
Excellent. And then, so Kim,
Absolutely.
you showed us that big book that you wrote. When you start a project like that, what does that look like? How many people are you working with? How long does that take? Are you working with additional writers? Can you explain sort of the process of writing a technical manual?
Well, that one in particular, for that software company, and it's been a while ago, almost even 10 years ago, I think that I had that job and wrote that book. And maybe, yeah, a long time, 20 years, because I've been at Cinecraft for 12. But you have at a software company, you have a product manager who is in charge of that software product, like Microsoft Word would be a product or something, and you work with them and maybe their assistants, and then you interact with the actual developers. A lot of times, and this is not, back then we didn't, but nowadays technical writers will be on an agile team. And I have friends who are tech writers now, and they work at a software company, and they get to sit in on all the agile meetings, and they're changing the documentation every day and publishing it like that. So you work with you work with the actual people who are creating the software, but you're also if it's a good company, you'll also be working with like their tech support, and so that you'll know what the users, what questions are they having, where are they having trouble, so that oh, I need to update my manual or my help file or a job aid or something like that, that you need to update that to be what people need. And many times, I mean, if the interface is really good, it's going to be obvious to the person what they're supposed to do. But if interfaces are never perfect, and everybody needs a little help. So so you're basically documenting around whatever hurdles, or I should say over hurdles, that would be for the end user. I wanted to say this is something that sparked in my mind from earlier. I was at a company that, and my subject matter expert was, I mean, this woman was brilliant. She's a member of Mensa, and she wrote this big long list of instructions, and at the very bottom, in big red letters, it says, "But first, before you do anything else, you need to blah blah blah." I'm like, okay. I'm sure that made a lot of sense to you, but I had to go and politely, sheepishly ask her, "Is it okay if I move this up to make it step one?" And then
Right, to
she's
make it
like,
first.
"Oh, oh yes, of course, But I mean, when you approach a person like that, I mean, you just can't go in blazing and say, "Well, you did this wrong," I mean, you just so that she understood, and she thought she was emphasizing it. The same way we get people who think that just putting a capital letter on a word is an emphasis rather than using bold or underline. I mean,
I'm
don't
grumbling.
you see
Yeah.
that? Oh my goodness. Yeah, so it's just interesting. You deal with people and they're brilliant, but as Jen said, they don't communicate well. Well, thank God they don't, because then we all have jobs. So
Right.
I wanted to bring up the Microsoft Manual of Style. And I don't know if any of you L&D folks is familiar with this, but when you have a project that involves like anything with a software interface, this would be a helpful reference for you. And I got a couple of links here.
Yeah, if you can, drop them in chat.
And basically, this is Microsoft. They have a manual of style, and they don't. Now they have it online. It used to be a big book, and it tells you how to talk. If you're describing an action on a user interface, what's the easy button? What is the standard way that everybody uses? And the thing is that Google and Apple, they follow this too. so that things won't be confusing for people. And I will tell you, this is my pet peeve, when you read in software instructions and it says, click on the save button. It's like, whoa!
My favorite one is when they say depress the button. I'm sorry, but the poor buttons, they're not depressed. You just
question for you both in terms of your learners seeing it, because you're not speaking to your learners or people who are reading the instruction. How do you get feedback that things need to be changed? Is it just that someone tells you the airplane part fell apart, or is it someone comes back to you? How do you get feedback that you should change some of the things that are happening there?
So, funny story
please.
In aerospace industry, we would get these things called service bulletins that would come over the fax machine back in the day. And first thing in the morning, you had to say, okay, what is going on? Is this, does something need to be changed in the manual? Do we need to write new instructions on how to do this service bulletin? It's usually some kind of repair that needs to happen. It was always disturbing you to get a service bulletin that said that parts were liberating themselves from the plane.
What does that mean?
Right?
You don't want things liberating themselves.
Exactly. So that was, service bulletins were one way to, it wasn't necessarily something was written incorrectly, but there was a lot of testing involved. We would write something, it would go back to the engineers, they would review it, it would go to test and setup, and they would follow it. Even if they knew how to do the procedure, they would follow exactly as it was written, and then mark up if anything was unclear or out of order or incorrect. You don't always have that luxury in technical writing. It's just aerospace is highly regulated for, obvious reasons, but often that there will be some testing phase that goes along with it.
Okay. I have another question here. So people say that the more that you read, the better you become at writing. Do you believe that's true? And if so, share what you've read that might be interesting.
I strongly believe that the more you read, the better your writing is. You're also introduced to different styles of writing, and you can start picking up and telling the difference between good writing and bad writing. My big thing now is I pick up passive voice like that, and I'm like, no. And that was a difficult transition for me when I went from technical writing into training, is using more conversational tone. In technical writing, you don't do that. And I remember one of the writers gave me something to edit, and I'm marking it up and getting rid of all the U's. And he's like, no, we can actually do that. So there is a little bit difference. And so understanding who your end users are, what is the message you're trying to convey, and you adjust your writing to that. So absolutely, the more you read, the more you can pick up on the different types of writing and styles there are and how that translates your message.
This is going to be my shameless plug to say, go to your local library because it's free and you should read it that way. So you don't have to buy the book. But you can buy the book too to support people. But what were you going to say, Kim? Sorry.
I was going to say what Jen said. Absolutely. Although I am guilty of not reading in very many genres. So, okay. I stick to, but I've been reading a long time. So, and I noticed that there are words that I think are common, and it's like nobody has said that for 20 years, Kim. So
that's
conflagration.
That's too much. I like it.
Yeah.
I have probably 2 more questions before we go into the speed rounds. One is that what are the misconceptions that people have about what you do?
A lot of people think that the manuals that they get that they don't understand is what I do. And I'm like, no, I do good stuff.
That's not me. That's somebody who wasn't trained.
you can understand my instructions.
Right.
Yeah.
But now a lot of people, how I mentioned before, they think that the technical writing is a lot of jargon and just, speaking over people's heads to make it sound important and scientific. And I think that's the big misconception, is that that's not what it is at all. And a lot of people think that, oh, well, I can do that. Well, you absolutely can, but there is training, there is learning involved. You can't just pick it up and just do it.
No.
There's definitely things that you need to learn, just like in training and development. Yes, anybody can learn how to do it, but there is learning involved. You can't just do it.
I would say that it's kind of a misconception in our field. I think that a lot of people don't know what technical writing is, and they don't realize that they are actually doing it. If you're doing a course that's about software, and how to use the interface and stuff, you're doing technical writing. And so don't right click on the save button, just right click save. But
Make it as simple, yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's funny that the two fields are very, very similar. And I think that I actually, on a couple of these TLD casts, I don't know if you, Monique and Lisa, remember me typing in the chat. I mean, like probably 4 or 5 times on that one cast. That's technical writing. That's technical. And the guy,
Yes,
the person thought that he had invented a new field. And the field does not promote itself. They're a little bit more geeky, a little bit more introverted, so they're not as out there as we all are, and many of us are introverted too. So if you have technical writers that at your company, leverage them. They know how to communicate that kind of stuff, but just realize they're going to be geeky, and as Jen said, they're going to want to take out all the U's. And then, but you work together, and that's the best thing.
That's, yeah, I do like that. I know you have one, Kim, but do you have a favorite quote or mantra that you live by?
Oh, mine.
I know yours, but I'll have you share it.
I actually thought of this when just before I got my job at Cinecraft, because I'd been laid off, and so I was looking for something to put on my business card. You know how you do then. And it's always remember what it's like not to know. And that's something that, I mean, I've always, once I thought of it, and people who were in my outplacement class, message me about that even now, all these years later, because I mean, that's the key, keeping in step with a person who doesn't already know, and being that translator, like what Jen had described. So
I think that's a very good description, being the translator. But Jen, do you have a mantra that you live by?
Monty Python, always look on the bright side of life.
Yeah. Short and sweet. I have one question from someone else in the chat, so I want to make sure I ask it for them. Do Jen and Kim think technical writing is different from scientific writing?
I don't know much about scientific writing, but my understanding of it is they have to do a lot of like noting resources and citing sources and that kind of thing. It's more of research.
My understanding is scientific writing is a subset of technical writing. And you find a whole lot more people doing software documentation than what you find in science writing. But maybe the scientific writers just don't realize that they are technical writers, and that there are resources for them. So
now I have worked with lab technicians in writing standard operating procedures and that kind of thing. So writing those SOPs, that is part of that technical writing. But what they were writing up as the results of their experiments and stuff, I don't know if that's considered scientific writing. I guess I'm not familiar enough with it to speak on that.
Okay, good. So we're going to go into the speed round. I would like both of you to answer, if you can, as quickly as possible, off the top of your head. Don't think too much. Simple writing. What's the last song you listened to?
Oh, jeez. I was going to say something by Metallica. I can't remember the name of it.
Okay, fair. I'll take it. That is an answer. What about you, Kim?
Probably Jesu Joy of Man's Desiring by pianist Daniil Trifonov, who is phenomenal. I got to go find that at YouTube. I'll put the link in there.
That's competing there. I would ask next, what is your favorite form of entertainment?
Oh, reading.
Shocker there.
Reading.
Yeah.
Reading for
Reading.
both of you.
Reading. Mhm.
And I would say definitely I've laughed more in this cast and it's technical writing and you think boring, but definitely not. What's the thing that you do that people might not know about you or is unexpected about you?
Well, most people know. It's probably my weirdest thing, though. I run very long distances.
How long?
100 miles is my max.
Oh God! Like in one sitting, or like one sitting?
One
You're
r-
obviously running.
One race. Yeah.
All right, that's
One race.
insane, but
Yeah.
awesome. Christina says on purpose, like you're not,
And
you're
I
not
pay to
being
do it. I pay
Yeah.
to do it.
So we're just gonna ignore that. But if you want to be really hardcore about running, we know who to talk to. Kim, what about you?
Oops.
What's
Yeah.
the thing that people might not know about you? Ooh,
Yeah, I was busy getting that link for you guys. So
no problem. Thank you.
Sorry.
Appreciate it.
That you guys know so much about me. Some of you might not know that I have grapheme synesthesia. That's not a disease. That means that when I am thinking about words and numbers, all of them have colors in my head. And there are some of the letters and the numbers, like a K and a 7 is the same blue. But I've had that ever since I was a child. It's not, I don't know where it came from, but it has really helped me to memorize things. But then if your name starts with the same letter as somebody else's name, I will mix up your names.
Because
Sorry.
associated with the same color. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Next question is there anyone that you fangirl or that you'd want to know about, get super excited about? Either in the industry or not, doesn't matter.
Oh. So many writers, definitely.
Share.
Anybody that's been in a Star Wars movie. Yes, please.
Okay.
More.
Okay. Yes, please, more.
Yay.
And Kim?
Well, I guess I've got to say the obvious thing is Brandon Sanderson, because I did pay for the backstage VIP pass on his last book release to,
There you
and
go.
get my picture taken right next to the guy. So he's a fantasy author. So,
I didn't even know
yeah.
book writers had VIP passes, so you just taught me something new. The question that only 2 people, myself and one other person, have said yes to: could your partner or best friend accurately describe what you do for a living?
No.
No, that was in zero hesitation, Kim.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we have 3. So Lisa, there you go. 3 of us so far who have said yes to that. I don't remember who the second was, but
3
you are
for
the third.
9. 3 for 9.
3 of 9. We've been able to say yes,
but not 7 of 9, right?
Nope.
Yeah, no, not at all. Lisa, can you drop in their LinkedIn information for
Absolutely,
us,
I would be
please?
happy to.
I want to thank you both for coming on today and for being fantastic guests even beforehand. They certainly wanted to be on this. I'm very excited to have shared their experiences with you. The next week at same time, we're going to speak to Ellen Nachu, and Lisa's going to be doing that interview on the 14th at 11 a.m. But both of you, do you have any final words before we sign off for the cast today?
Bye.
Bye. Thank you all for joining us today.
It's been a blast. Be here
Thank
for
you.
Alan. He is so fun. Be here.
Yeah. There you go.
You guys, before we sign off, I just have to say I've been hysterically laughing and thanking God I was on mute. This is so funny and so informative, and I have all these links open and great music queued up. So thank you so much.
This is Cinecraft. This is who we are.
We need to talk.
Yeah,
Much more.
you've definitely made my day much better. Lisa can
Yes.
attest that I was cranky before this.
Yes.
So I thank you
Yes.
for the very much needed laughter and information
Yes,
about
a
technical
huge
writing.
lift for the day. It was awesome.
It was.
All
Thank
right.
you all.
very much.
You all have a good
Bye.
one.
Everybody.